Hi, welcome to my video on the addition of integers. The addition of integers, the addition of two positive integers. When graphing an integer, you always start at 0. Let's graph plus 2. Plus 2, you start at 0 and move 2 to the right because it's a plus. Plus 4, you start at 0 and move 4 to the right. So there's a plus 4. Let's do the addition of a positive 1, add on positive 2. So you start at 0, positive 1 is 1 to the right. And then we add on positive 2, so that's 2 more to the right. So we end up at positive 3. The addition of a positive 2 and a positive 3, start at 0, you go 2 to the right for positive 2, and you add on a positive 3, so you go 3 more to the right. So you end up at positive 5. Note, both of the above are moving in the same direction. When adding two positive integers, you add the numbers and take the positive sign. Let's practice. Let me do these for you. Positive 1 plus positive 4, 5, and it's positive. 6 and 2 is 8, and it's positive. 8 and 7 is 15, and it's positive. 10 and 15 is 25, and it's positive. 21 and 37 is 58, and is a positive. 30 and 56 is 86, and it's positive. Note, but just to remind you that positive 1 is the same as 1. Positive 4 is the same as a 4. So really what you're doing is just saying 1 plus 4 is 5. Because we're used to adding positives all the time. But what about doing a bit of practice? So if you add these, you get 9 positive, or you can say 9. 6 and 6 is 12 positive. 14 positive. 30 positive when you add 17 and 13. And 63 positive, or 63, just a reminder. And this is 126 positive. So when you add two positives, you add up the numbers and take a positive. Okay, what about adding two negative numbers? Again, reminder, when graphing an integer, you start at 0. Let's add negative 1 and negative 2. So if we start at 0, negative 1 is 1 to the left, right there. If I add on negative 2, I go 2 more to the left, so end up at right there, which is a negative 3. Negative 2 add on negative 3, start at 0, and you go 2 to the left, negative 2. Add on negative 3 is 3 more, so you go 1, 2, 3, so that ends up to be negative 5. Both are moving in the same direction. When adding two negatives, you add the numbers and take the negative sign. Note, add them up is 3, take a negative. Add them up, 5, take a negative. Like the additions, you add them up and take a plus sign. So when you're adding two negatives, you add them up and take a negative sign. Some examples, add them up, 4, take a negative. Add them up, 10, take a negative. Add 11, take a negative. 24, take a negative. 58, take a negative. And this is 130 as a negative. Again, a reminder, when you add two negatives, you add up the numbers and take a negative. Pause your video, work these out, and play it back, see if you're right. 7, and it's a negative. 12, and it's a negative. 13, and it's a negative. 34, negative. And 112, negative. And this one is 181, negative. Again, when you add the two numbers up and you take a negative. When adding two negatives, you add the numbers and take a negative. Okay. What about the addition of a positive integer and a negative integer? Again, when graphing an integer, you start at 0. So let's add positive 4, add on negative 3. Positive 4 is 4 to the right there. And add on negative 3 means you got to go back the other way, 3 places. 1, 2, 3. So that's negative 1. Negative 5 add on positive 3. Start at 0. Negative 5 is 5 to the left, which is right there. And add on 3, you go the other way. 3, 1, 2, 3. So you end up right there. So the answer is negative 2. Note the numbers are moving in different directions or opposite directions, whatever way you want to say it, don't make any difference. So right here you move to the right and then you move to the left. In B you move to the left and then you move to the right. So you're moving in different or opposite directions. The rule: when adding a positive or negative integer, you subtract the numbers and take the sign of the integer which has the larger absolute value. If you look up here in A, you got a positive 4 and a negative 3. The larger absolute value is the positive 4. Oop. Look at me here. I had a negative 1 there, but that's wrong. Should have been positive 1. Slip of the mind, that happens. So when you subtract the two of these, you take the one with the larger absolute value. Excuse me. And here, the larger absolute value here is 5. That's a 5, and that's a 3. So the larger one is this negative, so you take a negative. Or as I say, you subtract the numbers and take the one which has more off. There's more pluses than minuses, so it's a plus. You subtract the numbers, which is 2, and take the one which is more off. There's more minuses. So let's complete this table to see. Subtract 3. The larger absolute value is the positive 4. So you have a positive 3 as your answer. Negative 8 and 3, subtract, you get a 5. The larger absolute value is the negative 8. So it's a negative 5. Subtract, you get a 5. The larger absolute value is negative 12. So again, you get negative 5. Subtract, you get a 6. The larger absolute value is plus 16, so you have a positive 6. Note, subtract, you get 6, but there's more pluses. Subtract, you get a 5, but there's more negatives. Subtract, you get a 5, but there's more negatives. Now let's do some examples. Subtract, you get a 6, but there's more pluses, or that's the larger absolute value, plus 9. Subtract, you get a 4, but there's more minuses, or negative 15 is the larger absolute value. Negative 7, or 7 when you subtract, and there's more negatives. Subtract, you get a 30, but there's more negatives. The larger absolute value is negative. Subtract, you get a 10, but there's more pluses. Again, plus 35 is the larger absolute value. Subtract, and you get 19. Is it 19? Yep. And there's more pluses. Okay, let's continue. Sorry about my throat there. Just add these. Practice. Subtract, you get a 4, but there's more negatives. Larger absolute value is negative. Subtract, you get a 2, but it's a plus because there's more pluses, or the 21 is the larger absolute value. Subtract, you get a 3, but there's more pluses. Subtract, you get a 10, but there's more negatives. Subtract, you get a 12, but there's more negatives. Subtract, and you get 27, but there's more negatives. Again, when I say more, there's more negative. You've got 40 negatives and 13 positives, so there's more negatives there. Now, what about if you're adding two integers? Well, there's two ways. You have a choice. You can follow PEMDAS, which is the order of operations. So I'm going to go down through here and do the order of operations. That is, you got to do no brackets, no exponents. There's no multiplication addition. So the end of this is that you have to add and or subtract as you move from left to right. So as I move this way, that gives me a negative 2. When I do these two, I get negative 9. And when I do these two, I get a negative 5. But if I do it adding up the positives and adding up the negatives, let's see. If I add up the negatives, I get a negative 15. If I add up the positives, I get a positive 10. Notice I'm not flipping. I'm just When you add two negatives, you add them up and take a negative. When you add two positives, you add them up and take a positive. Now you only got to flip. Positive 10, negative 15, subtract 5, and there's more negatives. So it's your choice which way you want to go. Let's go with A again. That's 12. 12 minus 12 is 0, so that's a negative 9 if you went from left to right. If you went with positives first, and then you went with the negatives, so that's a negative 21. Subtract, you get a 9, and there's more negatives. And or left to right, that's negative 1, that's negative 4, that's positive 2, and that's a negative 5. Notice I'm just taking the two of them, bring the number down between them. And if you add up all your positives first, if you wish, there's the positives right there. So that's a positive 20. Add up your negatives. So I got an 18, add up the negatives, and I'll get negative 25. Negative 25 and 20, subtract, you get a 5, and you got a negative. So it's your choice which way you want to go. So practice, pause the video, work these out. So you have a choice. Now you can go negative 18, 12 is negative 6, negative 6 and 3 is negative 3. If you want to add up the negatives first to get negative 18, add up the positives to get positive 15, and subtract, you get a negative 3. You subtract the numbers and take the negative, because there's more negatives. So it's your choice. But anyway, here we go. Negative 2. Negative 2, add on negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 and 20 is positive 16. And if I add up all the negatives, there, and there, that gives me negative 10. Negative 10 and positive 11 is plus 1. So you can go negative 2, add on 11 is 9. 9 subtract, add on negative 8 is plus 1. To your choice. And here we go. Plus, plus, plus. That's 7. 9 is 16. 8 and 1 is negative 9. Negative 9 and 16 is a positive 7. So it's your choice which way you want to go. But just be careful. Remember, when you're adding two positives, you add them up and take a positive. When you're adding two negatives, you add them up and take a negative. When you're adding a positive and a negative, you subtract the numbers and take the one which has the larger absolute value, or the one which has the same as saying the one which has the more pluses or minuses. Thank you very much. If you enjoy my video, click the like button, subscribe button, the notification bell, write a comment if you wish, and you may visit my math website at www.mathfullyexplained.com. You'll find information about me, my degrees and teaching experience. In the video section, you'll find what teaching strategies you're going to use to help you learn your math. And in the content section, you'll see the topics that I have on my YouTube channel, the number of videos that are on each of those topics, and the black font is what's already online, and the red font is what will be coming in the near future. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.